On my 18th birthday, my sister Isadora crawled into my boyfriend Alaric's bed. In a haze of passion, he sensed something was wrong and shoved her away in disgust. At 22, during my wedding, Isadora showed up in a bridal gown and brazenly asked Alaric to run away with her. He calmly had security escort her out, but I saw a flicker of something, pity, maybe even longing, in his eyes. At 23, as I clutched a positive pregnancy test, my heart soaring, Isadora took a knife for Alaric, shielding him from an enemy's attack. The blade struck her spine. She would never dance again. At her hospital bed, Alaric kissed her hand and swore to take care of her for the rest of his life. Later, I quietly had an abortion and filed for divorce. Alaric's eyes were filled with guilt as he signed the papers. I'm sorry, Odessa. Isadora has no one but me now. Now, at 25, I'm back for their wedding. A brilliant diamond glittering on my finger. Alaric, his eyes bloodshot, corners me by the bar. You want to piss me off, fine, but you don't have to wear a fake. That ring was designed by the divine brush. Ayu, for his wife. What's it doing on your hand? I smile, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips. Why do you think he calls himself Ayu? The Rhodes and Hawthorne families were finally uniting. The engagement photos were everywhere. My sister Isadora Hawthorne beaming with happiness and my ex-husband Alaric Rhodes smiling with doting affection. This was, in fact, the second time they'd been photographed in wedding attire. The first was at my wedding. Alaric stood beside me in his tuxedo while Isadora stood opposite us in a pristine white gown. She'd smiled radiantly, extending a hand to my husband. Alaric, will you run away with me? My wedding ended in a rushed, humiliating mess. Their story, however, had just gained its most dramatic chapter. Now, after all the twists and turns, they were finally getting their happy ending. Gossip mongers online had a field day, digging up the old photos from my wedding. If I were Odessa Byrne, I'd be too embarrassed to ever show my face again. She kept those two soulmates apart for years. Isadora is too kind, honestly, still thinking of her sister, even inviting her to the wedding. She's naive. Doesn't she worry Odessa will try to win him back, especially now that Alaric is the head of the Rhodes Corporation? Women would kill for a man like that. It seemed everyone was on Isadora's side. My name is Odessa Byrne. My sister is Isadora Hawthorne. It was always clear. Isadora was the family's precious jewel, held lovingly in the palm of their hands. I was the inconvenient afterthought, the one whose birth had supposedly caused our mother's fatal hemorrhage. When it came time to register my name, my father had gestured dismissively at a fishbowl on the clerk's desk. Just call her Odessa. Like an odyssey, a long, hard journey. The clerk's eyes had softened with a pity that I would come to know well. My name was poetic, but it couldn't change how my family felt. Growing up, anything Isadora wanted, she got, and anything that was mine, Isadora wanted. Alaric was the exception. No matter how much Isadora tried to seduce him, he remained steadfast, choosing me. My father, desperate to please his favorite, had even humbled himself before Alaric. The Hawthorne legacy will one day be Isadora's, if you choose her. The Hawthorne family is willing to offer a 50% stake in our new ventures. Back then, Alaric had squeezed my trembling hand, his voice firm and resonant. Mr. Hawthorne, my marriage is not a commodity. I am marrying into this family because I love Odessa. After the wedding, Isadora's outrageous stunt caused many of her suitors to withdraw their interest. Fearing for her happiness, my father sent her to London to study dance. I once believed I was lucky that after years of struggling to grow in the shadows, someone had finally chosen me unequivocally, but the real test begins when the passion fades. It was another one of those sticky, humid nights. Alaric's voice was a low growl as he tried to coax me into another round, his hot breath ghosting across my collarbone. A sharp notification pinged from his phone. He froze for a second, then glanced at the screen. In an instant, the predatory beast vanished, replaced by the polished, suit anti-executive. He kissed the sweat on my brow. Trouble with the Viridia City deal. I have to go check on it. After Alaric left, I wandered aimlessly, eventually finding myself in his study, scanning the bookshelves. It felt like fate. A book I could never normally reach, perched on the highest shelf, suddenly slipped and fell, dislodging a photograph that had been tucked inside. I pulled it out casually, and my world froze. It was a picture from my wedding day, but the subject was Isadora, her hand outstretched towards Alaric, her expression one of triumphant defiance. The photo's edges were soft and frayed, as if it had been handled, caressed 1,000 times. On the back, in Alaric's sweeping, confident script, were the words, "Perhaps I will never again encounter a love so raw, so fierce." The photograph felt like a lead weight in my hand. I dialed his number. His voice was as gentle as ever. "Hey, Odessa, the air in Viridia is so dry, my lips are chapped. Don't forget to drink plenty of water at home, okay?" I said I would, then calmly hung up. Alaric was lying. He hadn't noticed the background noise, the distinct, unmistakable chime of Big Ben tolling the hour. He wasn't in Viridia City. He was in London, the city where Isadora lived. The day I finally decided to leave him, Isadora took a knife for Alaric. The blade struck her spine, paralyzing her from the waist down. She would never dance again. When I rushed to the hospital, I found Alaric clutching my sister, his voice thick with sobs as he promised to take care of her forever. Seeing me, Isadora deliberately wrapped her arms around Alaric's neck and pulled him in for a kiss. Alaric saw me too. He flinched, a flicker of panic in his eyes, but he couldn't bring himself to push away the tear-streaked Isadora. They kissed deeply, a long, silver thread of saliva connecting them. When they finally parted, I turned and walked away. After a few steps, the world began to spin. When I woke up, a nurse was chiding me disapprovingly. "You're 2 months pregnant and you're not eating properly. You fainted from low blood sugar. You're lucky you were in a hospital." My mind was a complete blank. I didn't know how to face this new life growing inside me. But no matter what, Alaric deserved to know. "Alaric, we have to." "Odessa, you're being too selfish." Alaric, who had rushed to my room, cut me off, his face a mask of disapproval. He was too impatient to let me finish, too preoccupied to notice the deathly pallor of my skin. My father, whom I hadn't seen in ages, raised his hand to strike me. Alaric caught his arm, but my father's spittle flew as he screamed at me. "You're a curse. Your sister is already in that state, and you have the gall to fake an illness to get Alaric's attention." A glacial cold seeped into my bones. These were my family, my husband. Perhaps seeing how truly awful I looked, Alaric finally stopped my father's tirade. "That's enough, Dad. Isadora needs us. We should get back to her." I watched them walk to the door, their backs turned to me without a hint of hesitation. "Wait," I said, my voice quiet but firm. This time Alaric frowned, a flash of irritation crossing his face. "Odessa, I'll come back to check on you later. Don't Don't bother, my voice was flat, devoid of all emotion. Alaric, let's get a divorce. I clutched the positive pregnancy test in my pocket, the secret weighing heavier than my broken heart. This child, our child, would be my burden to bear alone. After the divorce was finalized, I had an abortion. With the generous settlement Alaric had given me, more than half his personal fortune, I found a picturesque town in Oregon, Serenity Lake, to heal. They considered me an eyesore, a nuisance. In 2 years, not a single call from my so-called family. I, for one, enjoyed the peace, until a few weeks ago, when my sister called. Odessa, Dad is gravely ill. You should come back and see him one last time. Dying, is he? That might be a spectacle worth seeing. So I booked a flight home. When I arrived, the clouds hung low and heavy, promising a storm. The moment I stepped through the door, I was greeted by a sea of red, the color of celebration, of a wedding. My father sat stiffly on the sofa, his gaze sharp and critical. Isadora, feigning ignorance of the tension, clung to his arm, cooing and laughing. My father's stern expression melted into one of pure, doting love. I had witnessed this stark contrast for decades. It no longer hurt, but it was clear he was perfectly healthy. Father, I said, raising an eyebrow and smiling at my sister, I heard you were on your deathbed. You disastrous girl. A glass flew past my head, shattering against the wall. A sharp sting bloomed on my forehead. I turned to leave. Isadora, as if just snapping out of a trance, wheeled her chair quickly to my side, grabbing my hand with a cloying warmth. She had changed. She used to be openly arrogant and domineering with me. Now, she wore a mask of gentle peace, but her eyes held a manic, pathological glint. I suppose losing the ability to dance had broken something deep inside her. I remembered a time when a dance instructor had praised my natural talent over hers. That evening, she'd secretly scattered marbles on the staircase. Luckily, someone saw her and warned me, but I still played my part. It tripped, taking a controlled fall that was just dramatic enough to get me out of the upcoming competition. From then on, I deliberately hid my talent, content to be her less brilliant shadow. For someone so fiercely competitive, how could she bear being so helpless, unable to even use the bathroom on her own? Isadora forced a gentle smile. Odessa, don't be silly. It's a happy day, so that was it. They had lured me back to witness her wedding to Alaric, meeting her gaze, which was a mixture of triumph and provocation.